Loyalty is just becoming ever more important. D2C really exploded. We saw this huge opportunity for D2C companies to enter the market in a meaningful way. We're seeing that those D2C companies are getting a stronger foothold in acquiring customers, but keeping those customers and building brands that people love and not being replaced by the next entrant to D2C is where a ton of focus is coming from the brands that we work with. And ultimately, that is why personalization matters. That is what makes the difference for a brand, is how well of a job do you do building an ongoing relationship, recognizing that person when they come back to buy from you, knowing what their preferences are, and making sure that you serve those unique opportunities to them.
Amanda, welcome to the D2C podcast. One of the things that comes up again and again with our listeners, I'm hearing it as a real essential piece of marketers and entrepreneurs' toolkit, is this concept of personalization. I want to just kick off by asking you, why do you think personalization is so important in the e-commerce world today?
Yeah, I mean, we all are consumers, and we all want to buy things that are for us. We want to be unique. We want to have our own individual style. We want brands and the companies that we shop with to understand who we are and to not send things to us that we aren't interested in, or to send us advertising that isn't relevant. For example, if you have a child with peanut allergies, you don't want a bunch of peanut-based products being offered to you. So I think it's just inherent in who we are as individuals to seek that we're known and that brands communicate us to in a way that celebrates that.
It's a push and pull thing too, because I think there's some people like, oh, I don't want people to know that about me, but then everyone responds to sort of delightful e-commerce experiences or things where it feels like the brand is speaking directly to you, or like people like that. Their actions, I think, dictate that they like those types of scenarios, but they're not always the first ones to sign up to be like, oh yeah, track my data.
Yeah, I think they don't want brands they haven't interacted with to know that about them. So I have not chosen to engage in a relationship with you. I haven't chosen to share that information with you. And so very much in the same way where if you came to my house and knew everything about me, knew all my kids' names, knew where I lived, and I had never invited you or met you, that'd be really creepy. So I think it's much more an exchange of a relationship. Like once I have decided to enter into a relationship with a brand, I purchased something, I like that brand, I want them to know my size, my preferences, and to contextualize my relationship with them.
Okay, so let's just talk Bloomreach a second here, because it's funny. I've actually brought you guys up in some podcasts that I've had with people. We just did an email podcast yesterday where we were talking about personalization in email, and I was talking about your tool. Your promise is an e-commerce experience built for every customer. What does that practically mean for our listeners?
Oh, yeah, we did a really cute marketing thing, and we crossed out for and put by there, because the reality is that as customers engage and interact with your brand, what their experience is changes. As I buy a product, I don't want to be sent retargeting ads for that exact product. I had, for example, a time when I bought a watch from Fossil, and I started getting retargeted for that same watch that I already purchased for $50 less than I had bought it for, which is entirely frustrating. It's like, why in the world would you spend money doing that, let alone make a negative experience for me? And so the customer dictates what they get next, how you engage and interact with them as a brand based on their behaviors. And so as the customer engages with your product, they put something in the cart, they abandon it, they buy something on discount, or they choose free shipping as an option, or they begin an entirely new journey, potentially looking for a gift for someone else, their experience automatically changes. You begin to see that they shop more at lunch on Instagram, or they respond more often at 8 o'clock at night via email. How you engage with them by channel and the product that you offer is dictated by their behavior.
It's super interesting. We had this leadership coach at Pilot House and D2C over the last little while, and one of the tenets he was really talking about was you support what you create in a lot of ways. So when you're team building, you're trying to get people to have a lot of buy-in and also to have a lot of input. And it's interesting how that kind of translates over to just these little interactions. Like you feel like you're leaving a trail, or you're creating a relationship with a brand with how you act. And if they are able to respond to that dynamically, like you're going to be more supportive probably.
Yeah, you nailed it. The consumers we see over and over and over again, that when you are providing data to a brand and they respond positively and they use that data to make your experience with them better, people love it. When you capture that data, you sell it, or you don't use it, and they have to continue to provide that information to you over and over again, it's a very negative experience. So that's And I love my leadership coach was all over me yesterday about planning. So love a good
Nice.
leadership coach.
That's awesome. Well, you talked about Fossil being a very, very negative experience where you get the discount after you already paid full price. Give me some examples of some really good, like magic moments or customer journeys that were created for clients with Bloomreach.
Yeah, so we have a customer that sells baby products. And if you think about some of the data that people are most protective of, it's data around their children, even pictures around their children. We see celebrities, hiding them. You put hearts over faces on social media. So your information about your children is even more sacrosanct than information about yourself. And so they sell children and baby products, which means the person that's making the purchase is not the person that it's for. So how do you engage in an exchange of information around who the actual user of the product is going to be when the parent is the arbiter of that information? And so they went on this journey to actually engage their customers in a way to say, look, this is the data that we're asking you for related to your children's birthday or your due date or some of those things. And the reason why is because we will actually send you tips and tricks about where you are in your journey of pregnancy or where you are in your journey of parenting, and we'll connect you with resources and create value if you'll share this information with us. They had over 56% of the respondents in their campaign actually provide data and engage. It was one of their highest engaged campaigns ever, and that's really sensitive data to collect. But that's because they were doing something valuable with it, and that ultimately is the litmus test that we work with all of our clients are. Where's the value that you're going to create with this capture?
It's deft, right? And it's like we talk with email. We talk all the time about how to maximize the efficiency in your your list engagement, and I think it's kind of intimidating for advertisers potentially to think about all the different segments they could be sending and how they might conflict with their campaigns, and you get this a lot of waste in a situation like that. So, give me an example of how Bloomreach helps with that.
Yeah. So ultimately, one of our big messages is send less emails, send less SMS. Every time you send an email or an SMS, it's costing you money. So if you don't have a good bead on if there's going to be a guarantee return on that or not, don't waste the money. And the reality is, conceptually, it's very difficult to think about all of the different kinds of emails and templates that you'd have to create. But when you use AI, which is a foundational element of Bloomreach, we can actually automatically create those emails for every single customer for you. So the content, the offer, the products that we put in the email is custom for every person. And then you also have your segmentation. So you can say, look, I want to send more often to my high value customers that respond by email. And I don't want to send emails to people who more often than not convert on SMS. I really want to focus a strong SMS campaign. Or I'm going to remove people who return products often from my ad groups because I don't want to spend more advertising dollars on someone who's very likely to return a product. So using the intelligence of our AI to actually make your campaigns have a higher ROI and personalize everything you send is at the core value of what Bloomreach does.
And manage it, because I think of the decision trees that would be created
Yes.
with this amount of segmentation, right? And the thing that I keep talking about was someone that came on the podcast a long time ago was talking about a restaurant that every time you went to it, it would treat you differently, but based on how many times you'd been there before. And I feel like that's an opportunity for brands, especially that have repeat purchases or whatever. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there to recognize people differently based on returning to the store maybe multiple times, and to sell them into memberships or whatever. Is that something that's possible or that you see brands doing with Bloomreach?
Absolutely. And loyalty is just becoming ever more important. We're seeing particularly, D2C really exploded. We saw this huge opportunity for D2C companies to enter the market in a meaningful way. The more stringent advertising companies get around data and use of that data, they're making it more accessible for D2C companies, even though it is still very expensive to pay ads and acquire those customers. We're seeing that those D2C companies are getting a stronger foothold in acquiring customers, but keeping those customers and building brands that people love and not being replaced by the next entrant to D2C is where a ton of focus is coming from the brands that we work with. And ultimately, that is why personalization matters. That is what makes the difference for a brand, is how well of a job do you do building an ongoing relationship, recognizing that person when they come back to buy from you, knowing what their preferences are, and making sure that you serve those unique opportunities to them.
Super. So this kind of data management platform is one of the hardest to define kinds of businesses, I feel like, in the whole SaaS stack when it comes to e-commerce. What acronym? I just want to learn new acronyms. So what is the acronym? Where do you guys see yourself fitting in the ecosystem? And it also just makes me think of like, yeah, I'll ask after, but like, what is the user experience actually like when you hook this thing up?
Yeah, so that is the question that we struggle with most is what is the acronym that describes what we do, because we do so many things. And the reality is there are a lot of businesses that are on Shopify that start with the Shopify ecosystem. They add a Klaviyo, they add an Attentive, they add a Segment, and those applications are available right outside of the App Store. And then you start to realize that your ability with a 2 or 3 person team to manage all of these disparate applications and the data that's at the core of it, and make sure that that data is communicating to email and SMS and all of these things at the same time is really, really difficult. And that's when you go on the hunt for our platform, our marketing automation, which is our Bloomreach engagement platform. Or you realize that your merchandising and your search on your site isn't strong enough to help convert when visitors come to your website. So you start looking for product discovery or product search applications, which is our Bloomreach Discovery product. So the reality is, like, as businesses mature and they start looking for solutions that really help them connect data directly to the channels that their customers are engaging with them on, that's when they start looking for solutions like ours. And the categories are a mess. Technology companies do not do B2B buyers any favors in making it easy to understand how we're different. We sound the same as a social media platform sometimes in the way we position. So if you guys have any recommendations, definitely let me know. But we do span technology categories from the customer data platform to email to SMS to product search and merchandising. All of them at the end of the day, though, have data and AI at the core that's leveraged to help you really grow revenue in your business.
How do you quantify the impact of a tool like this? Is it about the increased efficiency or conversion percentage that you manage?
I am a marketer, obviously, and so every metric that I have is optimized for revenue, and that is exactly what our platform is optimized for as well. So when we report back to our clients their ROI, it genuinely is around revenue lift. And we do that from when we say send less emails, it's not just send less emails to save money, it's send less emails to create more revenue, to grow. So that's important.
Yeah.
Revenue is important to us, yeah.
Makes sense. And let's just talk a little bit about privacy as well. This is something we talked about in the pre-interview, because this is something that also we're headed towards the cookie apocalypse, but this is the third-party cookie apocalypse. What we're talking about is first-party data, which just becomes that much more important that you do manage and take advantage of.
Yes, third-party cookies are the evil that is being deprecated everywhere, and it makes a lot of sense because how that information is shared, who it's shared with, when it says where you're allowing us to share this data with our partners, and the partners are extremely ill-defined, and we saw some of the negative or the bad actors who use that data in ways that where we're like, hold on, that's really not at all how I intended for my data to be used. So I think it does allow the consumer a greater level of control when we say the company, the brand does not own that information. Ultimately, I, as the consumer, own my information. But I am still a consumer online. I'm interacting with a brand on Meta or on X, maybe not X, but I'm interacting with a brand somewhere. And to me, that brand...
Not on Threads.
Not on Threads. That was that died fast.
Not on Threads.
Maybe TikTok. We're on TikTok and trying to make B2B TikTok a thing.
Nice.
But that's the reality is that when I go in store, when I interact on social, when I interact on the website, to me, I've interacted with that brand. And so the brand's ability to connect directly server side, as we talked about, into these various platforms and capture engagement with their properties is super important.
It's the Minority Report dream. I talk about it on the podcast at least once a quarter, but when it fits, right? That's that exact experience where you walk in and then through some directed sound wave or whatever, you get a personalized message based on your purchase experience, and it is that sort of like siloed customer relationship thing that you see in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I go to this place in Charlotte called Optimus Hall all the time, and they have those mobile parking apps, and you have to scan it, and it feels less convenient than just going up to the meter sometimes because it takes forever. And yesterday I drive into the parking lot, I get a text that says, "Hey Amanda, we've captured your license plate. When you leave, we'll charge you for the time that you were here to park. And I was like, this is amazing. I'm now very happy to pay for parking. And that is a little bit Minority Report, but I was super happy about it.
That's interesting. You mentioned in the pre-interview an example about the was the plant company.
Urban Stems,
And
flower company.
yeah, Urban Stems. Talk about Urban Stems and what they did with the tool.
Yeah, so Urban Stems is a really cool company. And so what they do is they want to source flowers from local florists and make sure that they're being more sustainable in their delivery, and they're providing you really high quality bouquets. And they're a customer of ours, and I absolutely love their bouquets. If you haven't checked them out, you definitely should. And what they do is, if you think about it, they have an inventory availability challenge. So if you think about it, you go to urbanstems.com and you're in New York and you love peonies and you go to order something, but they don't have peonies in New York. Like, how do they manage this inventory availability? So that's especially regionally, because they're working with local florists. But then when you think about the next layer down, people have preferences for colors and arrangement types and flower types. And so the level of data that they're able to use to get really personal to return visitors who come back and engage more with their brands is incredible with the engagement platform.
And they have to be, because they're managing different inventory and different ad campaigns. They probably have to run like regional ad campaigns and regional email campaigns as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a very complex business, and the inventory turnover there is even higher than a lot of the other retailers that we see. Because again, this is a live asset, so to speak, that does actually have a shelf life.
And so then in your platform, that is able to sort of be managed from one, or the insights from it are managed from one position, basically.
Yeah, so your inventory catalog, where that's available, the geolocation of that inventory, the preference in the customer profile for a peony versus a rose versus a greenery bouquet, those kinds of things, that's all stored in the customer profile. And then that data allows Urban Stems to automatically build emails and ad campaigns targeted to those users.
And I think that's the segmentation is a key in so many ways, but it's so often you have to know about the segments ahead of time. You have to sort of set up the segments and then fill them. But I guess the beauty of Bloomreach is that it can kind of help you uncover what you don't know about your segments as well.
Yeah, we absolutely help you identify segments. And then even with Gen AI and some of the new tools that we're seeing in LLM, we're actually able to do auto segment identification. So we will be able to do things like, here's your lowest performing group that have similar characteristics. Let us help you define that group and actually optimize campaigns to re-engage, or if they're likely to churn, how do we what are the best reactivation campaigns that you can serve this customer? So in addition to the identification of the segment, what are the recommendations to actually engage with that segment?
Well, you brought up AI, so let's talk about it, because that's where my mind goes. As soon as you go into these like insane decision trees where people are getting dynamic responses that are building on each other, just like AI has entered the discussion, yes. How does Bloomreach think about AI?
Yeah, I mean, AI has been at the core of what we have done. We have more than 30 patents, and the reality is AI for scale and creating businesses that can actually respond to changing consumer demand and the number of channels and the number of customers and the reality of personalization has always been a thing that we've all seen in the news, Gen AI, and really the next evolution, the huge step forward that we've taken, and that's just going to unlock a ton of doors. Not only for the customer experience, though I do think that's the most important application, is how can you actually use Gen AI to provide better experiences for your customers, but also on the back end, marketers and merchandisers are going to be able to automate a lot of these things like workflow creation, and AI will be able to do a lot of the heavy lifting there. And I'm super excited to see how this is going to change in the next few months.
What are some specific ways that you guys are using Gen AI right now?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do is we allow you to change voice and tone of your SMS campaign. So you could say, I want more of a Gen Z flavor for this, or I want to test a casual tone versus a more Yeah, so I can't even remember the word my son used yesterday, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. But
that's funny.
So you can choose different tones. Apparently you need to do a podcast on Gen Z terms.
Yeah, let's go.
But so that's why, and then there's obviously different channel types. So email is going to have a different voice and tone than SMS or than WhatsApp, as an example. But beyond that, there's also the workflow automation. So actually creating a win back or an abandoned cart campaign automatically for you, taking what has worked really well from a conversion perspective for other brands and creating that as a template. Other things will be like insight reporting. So it will notice things like, hey, my KPI has declined, and give you insights as to why that KPI has declined. We launched several of these features at our event, the Edge Summit, last week, and they're on our website. You can check them out. But I think it's just really, really cool what marketers and merchandisers are going to be able to do with these tools.
Very, very cool. What, like, with the brands that you're seeing in the space right now, the brands that you work with, or just, you've been in the space a while, what are you seeing that the brands who are like winning in these challenging times, like what do you see them doing best?
They own a very clear lane, and that's nothing new, right? I feel like that's marketing 101. Like, you get really, really clear about who your audience is, and then you just win everything about them. But I think the reality is you go beyond the sale. So one of the examples that we talked about with our customer Total Wine is that they're all about the service, and so that it's really difficult for them to think about, from a digital perspective, how do we deliver the same kind of hand selling service digitally that we do online? And one of the examples that we talk about is you ship wine to a customer after they've ordered it, give them recommendations about how to serve the wine, like what temperature should it be served at, what food is best to serve that with. So it's going beyond the sale to really providing value to the customer. And I think we see that across the board. When you look at brands that are doing incredibly well, they're not just selling you a product, you get an entire experience wrapped around it.
How do you guys wrap in, we talked a lot about the digital world here, but how do you, in that whole experience, how do you wrap in the physical world as well to these experiences, these profiles?
Yeah, the data that's offline is as acceptable. Everybody has a POS system. You all have an ERP that has to manage inventory in some way. And so ensuring that that offline data and information is connected to how online purchases happen, and not having a bifurcation or viewing those businesses as separate units, but really as a singular brand entity. I won't forget my experience with Home Depot, where I bought something online and I took it back in store, and I was talking about the experience of the paint color, and the person said, well, that's not Home Depot, that's homedepot.com. I'm like, but it's Home Depot to me. They're the same thing. So really making sure that as a business that your strategy is, how do I best serve the customer, and whether they want to buy online or in store, they need to feel like they're having the same experience with us.
100%. Very cool. There was another, I just wanted to mention a little bit about the discovery. Talk to me about what the discovery tool is and how it fits into all this.
Yeah, so with a lot of platforms like Shopify and Salesforce and those, you get a free search bar basically with your commerce application. But the reality is that those search bars have not been trained on your data. So when somebody comes to your site, there's very basic rudimentary search capabilities built into that search bar. But consumers have been trained to have really, really good search results by Amazon and by Google. So if you're not training your search engine to serve hyper-relevant data to your customers and products, they're going to get frustrated with your search bar. And 45% of purchases happen from the search bar. So it's a really important part of your website. Additionally, when the results show up, not just in the search bar, but on the listing page itself, they need to be great. They need to be presented well. They need to be the products that you want to sell, the products that you have inventory for. So making sure that you have the merchandising capabilities for those product listing pages and for those search results, to make sure that when somebody goes to buy something, it's not a product that's completely out of stock and never should have showed up in your search results in the first place.
And then how does this play into SEO as well? I feel like that's an area that a lot of marketers kind of underestimate.
Yeah, SEO is a big part as well, because it's not just about showing up on your website, but particularly in D2C, showing up on the Google, showing up where the search starts with the consumer in the first place. And so automating SEO, automating meta descriptions, and making sure that all of your product data is available and updated frequently across all of your properties, that's another super important part of how to get products purchased online.
Very cool. And then you guys are announcing your Shopify. You've launched your Shopify app.
Yes.
talk to me about that process a little bit, and then like what's the big improvement now that you're on Shopify?
Yeah, so we've been on Shopify for a couple of years, but we didn't have a marketplace app. And I, as a marketer, like that's where I start. I go to any of the applications that I have, and I want to see what their already integrated applications are. It feels like a great way to build a short list. So we wanted to be we didn't want to just have a Shopify app that you installed server side. We wanted there to actually be something that you could install from your Shopify backend, which is what we've now made available with our Shopify app for both engagement and discovery. And then, of course, you get the full power of our marketing automation platform and our search and merchandising inside of Shopify. And we connect and pull your Shopify data directly from your Shopify instance. And then we allow you to leverage that in all of your marketing and search and merchandising.
Very cool. Nice. So people want to know more about Bloomreach. I think it's just something I keep chatting about with people. I think it's just something really about the product that's in the zeitgeist right now. So that's super exciting.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is it just bloomreach.com? Is there any special place people should go?
Bloomreach.com is a great place to start. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Amanda Elam Cole. Sorry, I did just change my last name. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to chat. But Bloomreach.com is a great place to start. And you'll see a video of our customer urban stems on the homepage.
Very cool. Nice. Well, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.